All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the TNT podcast. So, babe, what are we doing today? What do you got for us?
So today we are watching more Jordan Peterson by request. And someone has requested the tragic story of the Manchild.
Okay.
He told me that Jordan Peterson has this video about Peter Pan and that we should check it out. So this is what came up when we put that in.
Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Check it out. And guys, leave your thoughts down below in the comment section. Join the conversation.
Yeah, and watch our other Jordan Peterson conversation.
Yeah.
This is the Peter Pan story, roughly speaking. Peter Pan is this magical boy. Pan is the god of everything, roughly speaking, right? And so it's not an accident that he has the name Pan. And he's the boy that won't grow up. And he's magical. Well, that's because children are magical. They can be anything. They're nothing but potential. And Peter Pan doesn't want to give that up. Why? Well, he's got some adults around him, but the main adult is Captain Hook. Well, who the hell wants to grow up to be Captain Hook? First of all, you've got a hook.
You got no hands.
Second, you're a tyrant.
Right.
And third, you're chased by the dragon of chaos with a clock in its stomach, right? The crocodile.
Yeah.
It's already got a piece of you. Well, that's what happens when you get older. Time has already got a piece of you.
Wow.
And eventually, it's got a taste for you. And eventually, it's going to eat you. And so Hook is so traumatized by that he can't help but be a tyrant. And then Peter Pan looks at traumatized Hook and says, well, no, I'm not sacrificing my childhood for that. So that's fine, except he ends up king of the Lost Boys. Yeah. In Neverland, well, Neverland doesn't exist, and who the hell wants to be king of the Lost Boys? And he also sacrifices the possibility that he'll have a real relationship with a woman, because that's Wendy, right? And she's kind of conservative, middle class, London-dwelling girl. She wants to grow up and have kids and have a life. She accepts her mortality. She accepts her maturity. Peter Pan has to content himself with Tinkerbell. She doesn't even exist. She's like the fairy of porn. She doesn't exist. She's the substitute for the real thing. And so, but the dichotomy that you're talking about is very tricky because there's a sacrificial element in maturation, right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not.
Right.
True.
You can either choose your damn limitation,
Right.
or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. You see?
And I think that is so true because I think that when you're young, everybody has goals and aspirations and dreams that they want to do that you think about while you're a child.
Right.
And as you get older and you see how difficult it is or how easy you may obtain your goals, reality starts to hit. And so all of a sudden you're 25 and you're like, oh, I'm not a millionaire yet. I thought it was going to be easier than this.
And Peter Pan was like, I don't want to grow up. And you see so many times, like even I see it on Facebook, people were like, why did I want to be a grown up? This is ghetto, or
Right, it's too hard.
I
Right.
didn't think it was going to be this hard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of parents did not prepare their children to be adults.
Yeah.
They it's unfortunate, and a lot of people are in Never Land until 30, until 40.
No, forever. It's
Well, eventually, like if your parents are no longer there to take care of you,
right.
you're gonna have to grow up at some point in time, and
Yeah.
we're in a point of time where more and more children stay with their parents and don't have the necessary coping skills to make it on their own.
Right. Yeah, we see that, but I think as far as with dating and relationships and with a lot of people in general, we just see that a lot of people are delusional, and they've been delusional from their 30s into their 40s, and at some point in time, reality's got to hit. You know, it's like whether you like it or not, you're gonna be Captain Hook. But anyway.
Well, no, you don't have to be Captain Hook.
You don't have to be Captain
No,
Hook.
I disagree with
But the thing
that.
of it is that time stops for no one.
Right.
We're all gonna get old. We're all gonna mature, you know. And so it's like, why live in La La Land?
Because it's easier.
Oh,
And some
there you
people
have it.
have the capacity, or not the capacity, but the ability to live in La La Land longer than they should.
Oh,
But then there are some people who are stuck in the middle where they don't have
you're in denial.
the crutch of parents helping you. You're
Okay.
just in complete denial.
Right.
You don't want to be Captain Hook and you don't want to be Peter Pan. You're just this
In the
boy
middle.
child,
Right.
you know, living in a fantasy world, wondering why things aren't working out for you.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we get a lot of complaints in the sphere of YouTube of,
Right.
well, things aren't going the way I want
Right,
it to
yeah.
because this is your fault, you know.
Right.
I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty.
There you
But
go.
all that happens is the penalty accrues,
Right.
and then when it finally hits, it just wallops you. Because when you're 25, you can be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless. It's yeah, you're young. You know, it's no problem. We can. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that point. It's like, what the hell have you been doing for the last 10 years?
Right.
Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. It's, yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant. So part of the reason you choose your damn sacrifice, because the sacrifice is inevitable. But at least you get to choose it. And then there's something that's even more complex than that in some sense, is that the problem with being a child is that all you are is potential. And
You know, that's powerful what he said. You have to choose your sacrifice. You have to choose what you're going to do. And
I miss that.
That is the truth. Because you may not want to grow up. You may not want to do certain things. But you have to, because you have to pay bills. You have to take care of your children. You have responsibilities, because that's what happens. As you get older, you gain more responsibilities. And as he was saying, that if you don't take care of your responsibilities, all it does is accrue. And it might not accrue financially, but say
but
for
it
instance,
will.
yeah, say for instance you have
But it will.
say for instance you have a child and you don't want to take care of your child. What would fester is maybe mental instability issues with that child.
Or resentment.
Or resentment. And as they get older, it's just going to build up until when they're an adult and they decide to confront you, then you got a whole issue to deal with, or even child support. But anyway, let's go. Let's continue.
it's really low resolution. You could be anything, but you're not anything. So then you go and you adopt an apprenticeship, roughly speaking. And then you become, at least you become something. And when you're something, that makes the world open up to you again. You know, like if you're a really good plumber, then you end up being far more than a plumber, right? You end up being a good employer. Not that plumbers, I'm not putting plumbers down. It's like more power to plumbers. They've saved more lives than doctors. So, hygiene, right? So, you know, if you're a really good plumber, well then you have some employees, you run a business, you train some other people, you enlarge their lives, you're kind of a pillar of the community, you have your family. Once you pass through that narrow training period, which narrows you and constricts you and develops you at the same time, then you can come out the other end with a bunch of new possibility at hand. And Jung talked about that. He thought that part of the proper path of development in the last half of life was to rediscover the child that you left behind as you were apprenticing. And so then you get to be something and regain that potential at the same time. Very, very smart. Well, he was very, very smart. So that's very wise.
Interesting.
Very wise thing to know. So, yep. Sacrifice.
So that's something that I will mention, is that what I hear a lot from a lot of millionaires, billionaires, older guys who...
You know billionaires?
Well, from watching videos. You know, one thing that it seems like they do after they've climbed the peak of the mountain, they've done everything, is what they find fulfillment in is no longer trying to keep climbing a mountain that they've already reached, but going back to helping others to climb that mountain. And so, one thing that I see is that a lot of those wealthy individuals, they like mentorships. They like helping people and giving advice and helping people navigate their way through life. And so when he said that, it just kind of resonated with that. So I thought it was really cool.
Okay.
We'll talk more about that too. You get to pick your damn sacrifice. That's all. You don't get to not make one. So you're sacrificial whether you want to be or not.
Oh.
That's a good thing to know as well.
And people are avoiding that.
Yeah.
And
Nobody wants to make the sacrifice because it's hard.
I mean, I disagree. I think there are people who realize they have to make a sacrifice. Here's the thing. I couldn't wait to grow up. I don't, for some people, when they say that being an adult is ghetto or it's not what they thought it would be, for me, I can't relate.
Okay.
Like, being an adult and making my own choices was like the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I had to fight for that.
Right.
Growing up, I had to fight for that, especially being an only child. And to discover that I am a good decision maker, that I do make good choices, and I'm okay with making certain sacrifices.
Right.
But I was kind of almost robbed from that.
Right.
Well,
I think as a child, all children are kind of robbed of their ability to sacrifice or make decisions.
I disagree. I don't think all children are robbed.
Most
of
children,
that.
because the parents are making the decisions for them.
No,
but I think
that makes no sense. As a child, your parents are supposed to make decisions for you. But when you get into adulthood, at some point, you have to let that child go and let that child go and trust that you instilled in them enough skills to make it on their own. Is when
that's what people hope for. But you know what happens with a lot of parents? Like for me, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a comic book artist, to be specific. And what your parents tell you is there's no money in drawing. There's no money in being a comic book artist. And, they use their knowledge. Your parents
told you that?
Yeah, they told me that.
Okay.
But that's the thing. That was my dream. And so it was kind of like they robbed me of what I wanted to do because they started telling me that I couldn't do this for a living. And so all of a sudden, from that point on, you are like, you know what? I need to get a real job. I need to do something else. And that's what happens when you get into adulthood. You have to make a sacrifice. You have to make a decision of, hey, am I going to continue on this path to being an artist, or am I going to go get a real job?
I'm sorry. I would have to disagree with you. I don't think your parents robbed you. I think your parents prepared you. There's a difference between preparing and telling you what happens in the real world.
Right.
And
so as a child, you feel like you're robbed. But
we are not talking about the same things.
Right. Well, as
Me and you are not talking about the same
thing. As a child,
thing.
you feel like you're being robbed. But as an adult, yeah, I do feel like my parents prepared me for the real world. But once I became an adult, there were still sacrifices that I had to make.
Yeah, but you're comparing what I'm talking about that is completely different to wanting to be a comic book artist. The comparison isn't the same.
Okay.
Your parents allowing you to still be an adult. Like in my 20s, there was a tug of war because you're like in certain households, and especially the Black household, they can't wait to get you out of the house. Okay. It's like once you get 18, you're gonna be out of my hair, and you can do what you want because you're gonna pay your own bills. And so I was under that impression. However, when I did start paying my own bills and got my own apartment, then the tug of war still was there. Right, yeah. It was like, I still need to control you because you're my child. Okay. And I don't want you to be an adult. Yeah. I want you to pay your own bills and not be in my house, but I still want to tell you what to do. Right. Mm. And so there were a lack And my mom, she did the best she could. She was by herself. But as an adult, I see that. Like, there was lack of preparation in order for me to fail. But when I start, like, not failing and actually doing good, it's like, wait a minute.
Right, yeah.
You know,
Can't tell me what to do.
and so that's what I'm compared. Like, although there was a lack of preparation to become an adult, like, I still figured it out, still realized that, yeah, there were sacrifices that I had to make. Either I can do this or I can do that. Like, instead of going out and partying and buying outfits for the party, I'm going to stay at home and
save
pay my
money.
bills
Right.
and save my money, like, things like that. So I never understood why people didn't like it, because I did have certain phases in my life. I had the party stage.
Right.
I had the college phase. I had, all that. And then when I started working, it was like, okay, well, that was a phase and I'm doing something else.
Right.
But that's hopefully you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't, your comparison, I just don't get it. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, in my mind, I got it. So, but let's.
That's all that matters.
Let's continue.
Even though it's rather, it's a rough thing to figure out. But other questions?
I have one if no one else.
Okay.
That thing you just said about noticing it more and more in people late into their 20s.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Where do you think that comes from in terms of the culture we live in?
I think universities facilitate it. Because you can go to university to not be something. Instead of going to university to be something. And it's Pleasure Island. And the price you pay for it, especially in the US, is debt.
Oh.
And you're
wow.
enticed into it because the administrators can pick your pocket.
Yeah.
So they rob your future self while allowing you to pretend that you have an identity.
Damn.
Right? Very nasty. And you can't declare bankruptcy with your student loans in the US.
Right.
It's indentured servitude.
Ooh.
And it's precisely Pleasure Island. It's exactly that. And so tuition fees have shot way out of control. And part of the reason that universities don't make more demands on their students and let them get away with all the things they let them get away with is because they're basically, why the hell would you chase them out?
Right.
They're $100,000 or more. So they can do whatever they want as long as you get to sell them to the salt mines. Right.
Wow.
So, and it's not the only reason, because the other thing that's happened is that the rate of technological transformation is so fast now, and the rate of turnover of things is that it is genuinely harder for people who are, say, 18 to 20. When I was a kid, roughly speaking, the kind of rough patch for life was probably 14 to 17, something like that. Now I think it's 18 to 25, something like that. And I think the reason for that is that all the jobs that the bloody hippies complained about being doomed to in the 1960s have now disappeared. Their problem was, oh my God, I'm going to go have to work for a corporation and get a salary for the rest of my life, and then I'll just end up in it with a pension, and that'll be my whole life. It's like, well, it seems like a lot better deal than an endless round of part-time Starbucks jobs.
Right. Yeah.
So, some of it is that. There's a space now in our culture that is lacking for people to make that transformation from adolescence into adulthood.
Yeah.
And so it's the cost of that is forestalled. It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing.
Wow.
So I thought this was very interesting. I really like how he can take something as simple as a fairy tale like Peter Pan and make it so relatable into our culture and how society molds and shapes us from adolescence into adulthood. So I thought that was very cool.
I don't think it was like a simple fairy tale. I think there was more behind the fairy tale than we knew, because I mean, if you really think about it, why didn't Peter Pan want to grow up? Think about the adults that were surrounding him. And
Well, when you think about it from a child's perspective, children don't go too deep into that story. They don't ask
No,
questions.
I'm not
why.
talking about
And
a
so
child perspective.
from-
I'm talking about just a perspective now, like how we're looking at it.
Right.
You know, and I think there's plenty of reasons why people go through the things that they go through. Even being stuck at home a little bit later in life. The culture is different, the economy is different, the opportunities are different. And so you can leave your experience in the comment section down below. All of our experiences are different, and if you feel like sharing those experiences, because I know some people are going to be like, well, I couldn't leave home because of, the economy was bad, or there was a recession, or somebody was sick, or different things. Everybody has different reasons. So our experiences are our experiences, and it's not to like make a blanket statement for everyone. So we're here to have these conversations, so keep the conversation going in the comment section down below.
Absolutely. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Guys, we'll see you next time.
Ta-ta.
Peace.